Well, welcome all. Uh, that was a little temporary prayer altar. If you saw the opening screensaver for Sister Elaine DeRozier, if you don't know her, she's a 90-year-old Dominican nun from St. Catherine's here, about a half an hour down the road, and great friend of mine. We first met on the weekend of um, I'm blanking on it. The hurricane in New Orleans. Uh, you know what I'm talking about. I have forgotten it, but we met that weekend for a retreat and known her ever since. And a great friend of the family and friend of many people who have been to Loose Leaf Hollow. And she's in the hospital with COVID. She tested positive for COVID a week after Thanksgiving, and the nuns were entirely cloistered there. It's as tight as it gets, but still they have staff and whatnot. And so, she found it hard to hard to breathe yesterday, and so she was going in. She went in yesterday, and uh, I found out much more. I had one text from her. I was really worried with her because I actually called her in the morning, and she could barely talk to me, and she was uh, heading to the hospital over in Lebanon, Kentucky. So I hadn't heard anything, and there's really no way to hear anything. But I had a little impromptu prayer service with lots of people who know her yesterday, and about 25 people. And I did hear from her. So some of you guys are watching. I did hear from her, a little short text. I don't want to call her because she's having trouble breathing, but she said finally got a room. She was in the ER for a while. Finally got a room, better meds, having trouble breathing. But I watched the game, and the game was a Notre Dame Syracuse football game. The sister, she worked at Notre Dame for many years, and she in all the new expansion, she was the AV person, and she actually pushed them to actually get like a 21st century AV thing. So she was quite a woman, quite a woman. I could tell you stories for the whole time now about this woman. But anyway, I'm dedicating the session to her today. I gave her a little text this morning to see how she was going. Haven't heard anything back. So this thing, COVID was always real to me. But when you know somebody like that who is can't breathe, it got realer yesterday for me, and so did the rage I feel about it. So after this session, I'm going to go out and chop some wood. The guy's got some nice rounds waiting for me, and that's the best way to deal with that for me. But today, she would have loved. She was planning on coming today because she was quarantined anyway. So we'll dedicate it to her the way Tibetans always do. They dedicate everything to somebody. So for Sister Elaine, and I'll keep you updated on her. Uh, Hopefully, if anybody can bounce back from this, even at 90, it would be Elaine. Well, okay. So we're going to keep going with working with mirroring here. And let's just do a couple of Hafez poems. Hafez, and for some of you, I got to apologize. Some of you, we talking a little bit of code here. Somebody say, well, I'm a 6 on the Enneagram, or I'm a 5, or I'm a 1. And if you don't know the Enneagram, it sounds like there's a little code. So it would be really helpful to, if you're wanting to know more about the Enneagram, there's a book called The Positive Enneagram, which is a great starter. It's called The Positive Enneagram. And with fair warning, once you work on the Enneagram, you can never unsee it. You're going to see things that you really understand about yourself, but also some things that you'll see the shadow too. But positive Enneagram Elaine's. I was just about to say Elaine's a 7 on the Enneagram, and one of her favorite poets is Hafez, who we've used. I've used his poems. I'm going to use one of his poems today, but I've used one of his great poems to introduce the session often. You're familiar with this. It's called the divine invitation. You've been invited to meet the friend. No one can resist a divine invitation. That narrows your options down to just two. You can come to God dressed for dancing or be carried on a stretcher to God's ward. Any of you who know Elaine know she always comes dressed for dancing, and she'll be dancing in her bed. The last time she was in the hospital into rehab, she had both her knees replaced. She's got better knees than I have now. She jokes all the time. She said, "I'm going to be the best patient that they've ever had." That's her seven, and she probably was, but she loves Hafez. She loves Hafez, and you guys showed up here. You're by definition dressed for dancing, which is good. We shouldn't have to wait till we're in the hospital where we can't draw breath to get serious about this stuff. So, you're her kind of person, and she's your kind of person. So there's that one I use a lot. You can either come to God dressed for dancing or be carried on a stretcher to God's word. One way or another, you're going to have this meeting that Rilke was talking about, to meet and be met. Well, you got options. And you guys who are showing up here week after week, or maybe today for the first time, well, congratulations, you're dressed for dancing. Now, Hafez has another really a great poem, and we'll use this today to spring us into sitting today. Hafez says this. He says, admit something. Admit something. Everyone you see, you say to them, love me. Admit something. Everyone you see, you say to them, love me. Of course, you don't do this out loud. Otherwise, someone would call the cops. Still, though, think about this. This great pull in us to connect. Why not become the one who lives with a full moon in each eye, that is always saying with that sweet moon language what every other eye in this world is dying to hear? Admit something. Everyone you see, you say to them, love me. Of course, you do not do this out loud. Otherwise, someone would call the cops. But still think about this. Think about this, because it's great pulling us to connect. Why not become the one who lives with a full moon in each eye, that is always saying with that sweet moon language what every other eye in this world is dying to hear? Yeah, Hafez. Daniel Ladinsky is a great translator of Hafez. There are others, but he's my favorite. Now, I have known people who have that. We're going to break this down a little bit, break this poem open. He starts out, admit something. Everyone you see, you say to them, love me. Well, I think that's probably true. Reflect on it. We don't say it out loud. We're not even aware that we're sending that message, but I think that's real insight into people. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be loved. We think, if you got $280 billion, well, then someone's going to love me. Well, they're at least going to look after me. We look at all these other ways to get love without really realizing that what we really want is love itself. Yeah. He says, think about this deep, great pull in us to connect. Again, going back to the Rilke poem, he says, to meet and be met. It's innate in human beings. And then he said, well, why not become the one who lives with a full moon in each eye? Well, you got to know a little bit. Sufis are always playing with symbols, of course. And the moon is a serious symbol in Sufi poetry. The moon has no light of its own. Yeah, the other night, when the full moon was out, there was a night we had a little brief snowfall here. I just got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and looked out the back door. It's all glass, and I could see the moonlight just on the snow. It was bright. People who come to Loose Leaf Hollow, we have skylights in every room, and when there's a full moon out, uh, people have it just grabs you. It just grabs you. But yet, the moon has no light of its own. It's reflecting the light of the sun, and for Sufis, that's a serious symbol. And it's also what human beings can do. They can reflect this light that they've received. But that's actually, what it comes down to for a Sufi, and it's what it came down to for Jesus as well. In the great prayer of Jesus called the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father, he basically, in my rendering, where he said, the fourth line, on earth as it is in heaven. This idea that what's in heaven can be reflected on earth. That's a reflection kind of image. My rendering of that from Aramaic was to bear the beams of love to each one you meet. And again, it's this reflecting thing. It's what we've been talking about with the mirror. So why not become the one? So here's a job description for you. Why not become the one who lives with a full moon in each eye, that is always saying, with that sweet moon language, what every other eye in the world is dying to hear. And I like the confusion at the very end. He says, why not reflect the full moon in each eye? So he's working with the visual here, that is always saying what with that sweet moon language, what every other eye in this world is dying to hear. It keeps going back and forth, confusing the hearing sense and the eye sense, which is beautiful because, sometimes that sweet moon language is a word. It doesn't have to be I love you. Just could be that, I see you. See. If you ever saw the James Cameron movie. Oh, Hurricane Katrina, by the way, for any of you guys were as mindless as me. If you ever saw the James Cameron movie, Avatar, when the tall blue cat-like primitive people on this planet, when they greet you, they say, "I see you," and that's the ultimate. That's the same as saying, "I love you." To be seen, you see, to be seen, to really be seen. It took me about 10 years to see my wife, lovely, lovely person, but I never saw her. I saw the woman I thought I wanted to marry, just amazing what a slow arc of learning it was for me to actually see my wife. And so after that, I sort of drove her crazy because she likes to drive. So she would be driving, and I'd be sitting in the passenger seat just gazing at her, and she'd look at me and she'd say, "What the hell are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just looking at you." She said, "That's creepy. Don't do that." And why is it when people look at you, you feel like they're staring at you? It's a little, and in depending on what culture you're in, to make eye contact with people is actually rude, especially if you got 8 people living in a teepee or something, or you got all these people packed together. Then the only way to have psychic space, even when you don't have physical space, is to avoid eye contact. But that's such a shame because it's you can't love somebody unless you see them. And eyes, I'm looking at the altar right now here, and I have my grandmother's picture hanging a little bit above Merton in the Dalai Lama, and she had that moon language. She looked at you. It's what they talk in psychology as mirroring. The first eyes you see, maybe they're your mother's eyes. Maybe they're your dad's or one of your siblings. How do they look at you? That's huge. Psychologists are saying people, take 60 years to recover from a frown from their mother. Your mom just couldn't do it. Maybe she had her own problems. But we can do this. So here's your job description. Why not become the one who lives with a full moon in each eye? Who's always saying that sweet moon language, what every other eye in this world is dying to hear. Sister Elaine has that in her eyes. Anybody who's met her knows that. Oh, some stories I could tell. But she basically looks at everybody like that. It's great to have a new job description, especially if you're retired. Become the one who lives with a full moon in each eye. But it's how do you really how do you work up to that? Well, I got one more poem here. It's from Donald Trump's. Where the hell is it? Oh yeah, here it is. It's from Donald Trump's only book of the Bible that he knows, which is he called 2 Corinthians. This is from 2 Corinthians here, and that's Paul, and he says, "And we, with our unveiled faces, reflecting like mirrors the brightness of the Lord, all grow brighter and brighter as we are turned into the image that we reflect." This is the work of the Spirit. So that we, with our unveiled faces, reflecting like mirrors the brightness of the Lord, all grow brighter and brighter as we are turned into the image that we reflect. This is the work of the Lord, who is Spirit. So that's a perfect intro to dropping into the depths of consciousness, where, again, we've been building a kind of Sufi image here to work with of a jeweled dance floor. That's the place of meeting for the dance was the image of the soul, one of the great images of the soul for the Sufis, because the soul is this place of meeting where you come to meet and be met. And they called it a jeweled dance floor, which was also, think of a jeweled dance floor, be reflecting all kinds of light, you see. And, we drop down there as best we can with whatever method we can to go to the depths of consciousness out of the kind of surface mind that has to deal with, all kinds of surface stuff. And then even the rational mind, the next level as we drop down, which is important, but not for this work. We drop down past that borderline where we drop into, in a way, the darkness, at least dark for the rational mind, dark for the knowing mind, and then to meet and be met. And then, as Paul said, then we with our unveiled faces reflecting like mirrors the brightness of the Lord, all grow brighter and brighter as we're turned into the image that we reflect. So I think this is the long-term work. My grandmother, you grow up with somebody as a little kid and you think everybody does this. Everybody has a grandmother that lives with them. Well, that's not true. And everybody has a grandmother who goes into her room and shuts the door 3 times a day and she prays her prayers. And that's how you get that moon language. So what we're doing now, and if you start to go with this and you start to say, yeah, I want to be that person that reflects this ultimate love that the universe has for us. I want other people to feel that. Well, you got to show up. Just like you're showing up today, we show up and we drop down. And then there's nothing to do. The only thing to do, as I see it in this process, is when you realize that you've been popped back up to some other shallower level of consciousness, just drop back down, however you do it. However you do it. When you're aware that you're not down to meet and be met, you're working on a problem, which I'm often doing, then I just let go of the problem and the work and drop down. So down there, it's presence. It's not work, you see. Presence that's another great Sufi word that we'll explore further. But presence is just showing up, unveiled, and just here I am. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. And usual deal, I'll ring the bells and we'll go into meditation mode. But just if any of those images help, fine. If they get in the way, drop them. But essentially, we're dropping down to the deepest level of consciousness to meet and be met, to mirror and reflect ultimately. Okay, bon voyage.